Okay, so I am here with two other writers, and we are going to definitively determine which is better, plotters versus pantsers, in a completely black and white fashion. Mm-hmm. No, we're not going to do that. No, just kidding. Okay. Yeah, but we're going to talk about the whole plotter pantser thing. But first, before we get into that, do we want to introduce ourselves? Aimee, did you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm Aimee Davis. I write adult fairy tale retellings. I say fairy tale retellings for grown-ups, and I'm represented by Kira Alexi over at Azantian, and I am currently in the process of trying to sell a book.
It's a really good one.
Yeah. Phil?
I'm Phil Cameron. I write adult fantasy. I am not represented. I am currently in the querying trenches with my fourth book. I think fourth book. And I write kind of in the gamut within adult fantasy.
Mm-hmm. And then you all probably know who I am already if you're watching this video, but I'm Madeline James. I write adult fantasy, and I have my debut book, indie book, coming out in April.
Also a really good book.
Which you should give us the title of.
Because the beast came. This is the fake cover, not the real fake cover. This is the fake cover.
It's nice.
We got like layers upon layers here. It's like an onion.
Yeah. I just finished updating the Amazon listing to have the new fake cover.
Okay.
It's a whole process.
I've one of my friends does this all the time. She's like, here, da da da, and I'm like, where's the link? Where's the link?
I'm so bad at that. It's hard. And it's weird. It's weird selling your own stuff and being like, hello, I'm so-and-so. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm awesome. Buy my book. Okay. All right. So to get into today's topic of discussion, I'm going to quickly explain what the whole plotter versus pantser thing is, which I think most people are aware of. But it's essentially a sort of scale that some people are of the opinion that it's a lot more like two separate boxes you go in, or like more of a scale. There's a lot of people that describe it in different ways, but it's essentially how much of the writing process is done like where you're coming up with what's happening as you're writing it, which is more the pantser side. Like if you're flying by the seat of your pants, right? You're just kind of seeing where the story and the characters take you. Maybe you have a couple of like specific scenes, or like you have an idea of the ending to kind of goalpost your way through the book. Or you're on the plotter side where you're like doing full beat sheets, full outlines, really figuring out what's going on beforehand before you even start writing. So that's sort of the high level distinction. And then one of the other big common differences or labels, I guess, people use is the gardeners versus architects, which is sort of a different take on the plotter versus pantser thing, which is architects who are like planning every little detail, every little thing out like a blueprint beforehand. And then you have gardeners who sort of plant the seeds and then wait to see how they grow and they kind of nourishment and kind of see how it's going. So that's kind of the distinction we're working with here. But we have a much more fun version to propose also.
So I have an alignment. I am an absolute nerd, which is probably going to come through as we chat. D&D alignment charts. And I have a version that I think of as like the writer alignment chart. I think I've seen like different kinds of versions of this over the years, and this is mine. So we've got the plotter versus pantser. So you got on one side, you have pantser, and on the other side, you have a plotter. And then in the middle, you kind of have like a neutral, which I call the plantser, who kind of does some pantsing, kind of does some plotting, but doesn't really strictly adhere to either side. And then on this scale, you have the lawful, the neutral, and then the chaotic. So you could have a chaotic pantser, you could have a lawful pantser, you could have a lawful plotter, and any kind of variation there within. And I think because it's never easy just to say like plotter, pantser, planter. I feel like it doesn't capture the wide range because I have known a lot of plotters and they are not the same. I've known a lot of pantsers and they are also not the same.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to label us based off your alignment.
Okay. So I guess that was the thing is I decided what I thought the three of us are. Maddie, as anybody who has watched her channel can probably guess that she is a lawful plotter. Aimee is what I would call a lawful pantser, which to me is incredibly fascinating. I am a chaotic planter. And then we can kind of chat about like, what does that even mean?
Right.
Yeah, the caveat here is obviously that, I like to say there's never such thing as a real writing advice, right? Like, it's like give or take. It's whatever you can take from it, take and throw away the rest, because there's no real good, right or wrong way to do writing. Like, regardless of what the experts say, regardless of what, your creative writing professor says, like, there's no good way. You got to do what works for you. Just get the book written. If you get the book written, you're doing the thing.
I mean, we've all written multiple books and we all have very different methods.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's very fascinating hearing about other people's writing processes and the things that work for them.
It's definitely one of like the number one questions I get asked. And I think it's always funny because especially when younger, like up and coming writers ask me, I'm always like, I don't think you should follow my method. Actually, you should like, not only should you work with you, but like my method is probably not that great for anyone's mental health, like including mine. So
Yeah. I always like the idea of like, and I think I did this a lot when I was first kind of trying to figure out what worked for me, is just hearing a lot about what other people do. And like, I definitely tried out a lot of things to an extent. Like you said, though, I'm very much a lawful plotter. So I mostly just tried out stuff in that area. I've never even attempted to pant something. I'm like, I feel like I thought about it once and I was like, oh, no.
Not true. You kind of pant something a little bit last year. You didn't experiment, remember?
That's true. But I still technically had an outline. It just wasn't what I like for a pantser. They would probably be like, whoa, this is a super intense outline. And for me, I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what's happening. This like 20,000 words is nothing.
I think that was enough of an experiment for you to like solidify what works for you and what doesn't.
That's true. And I learned that is not enough for me.
Exactly.
Even a little bit. But yeah, hopefully through this process, because we're going to talk a lot about our own processes and kind of where we fit and just like kind of ruminate on all the differences and how it's cool and everything is right and nothing is wrong unless it doesn't work for you, right? All right. So the first question that I had for us to answer as a panel, which I feel like, I guess I'll start. I'll answer the first one, and then we'll like rotate who answers which one first, just because
you can randomly pick.
I'm a lawful plotter who feels like there needs to be a plan before we get started. So our first question is to essentially just describe your planning process. That's kind of the first one. And I'll be brief because, again, I think anyone watching this is fairly familiar with my book planning process, but I like to do, I start with like a brainstorm where I'll kind of come up with my core, like, little tagline, and then I'll brainstorm all the little sections. Like, I'll have my plot line section, my settings, my magic system, my characters, and then from that, I'll kind of branch out more and more and kind of tie things together. And then once I have a high level idea of what I want, I go crazy. I make like a whole, I don't quite do like a beat sheet, like a Save the Cat 3-act structure thing, but I do break it into like acts, sequences, scenes, and then like, depending on how much I'm doing, sometimes I'll break it down even to the individual beats within a scene, and I'll kind of plan it all out. I'll fill out like tons of character profiles, and like I have like whole like world building Bibles or whatever you want to call them of like maps and world stuff, and I'll copy those notes and put those in the outline. Like, we're going to cover these world building details in this scene, and like I do all of that, and it's kind of like an iterative thing where I get more and more detailed as I go until I have just like 1 to 3 pages per scene to write, and one scene normally turns into like 1,000 words, which is not that much more than the actual outline is, but it's like it's kind of different. I don't know. Again, if you've seen my stuff, you've seen my process like 87 times. So yeah, that's my process. Wait, this way, Aimee.
Mine is process is not as much of a process as that was just described. I like shudder at the thought of beat sheets. When I'm a Pitch Wars alum, and my Pitch Wars mentor, everyone else is reading Save the Cat and all the rest and doing beat sheets, and I'm like, if you hand me a beat sheet, we're gonna have problems. Like, I'm not gonna be a fun mentee for you. Like, we instead, what we worked on was GMC, like goal, motivation, conflict. So for me, that was like it's hard for me, since not only do I have stories that go kind of everywhere because I'm a pantser, but also I have PTSD. So I have a bit of like up and down to begin with, so in my own brain. So we worked a lot on like keeping the goal, motivation, conflict consistent through the story. So usually the only things I start out with are two characters, their goal, motivation, conflict, sometimes an antagonist, and then maybe an idea for a starting scene. And then I just follow the GMC and see where it takes me.
It is a wild experience to me.
And then I do all the stuff that you're describing after I've written the book.
Yeah. I feel like I hear that a lot, that like, I mean, at some point you have to think about all the things, right?
Yes.
It's just, when do you do it? And at what point do you do it?
I think in fantasy especially, right? Because usually we're writing series. Like, we have to make sure our series link up and that their world building is consistent, and we don't have weird gaps in time that the readers are going to pick up on. So, yeah, I mean, I create all that stuff just after the book, though. I have this giant, like several of these giant notebooks that are just called like the book of everything. And they've got,
I love it.
Got all that stuff in it.
But it's very organized. I've seen it.
Yeah, it is. I actually have one here, bro. So it's like this, and it's like it's like annotated, and it's like all.
Yeah, I knew you would like that.
I love sticky tabs.
So it's got like all of the things. It's got character and world building and magic systems and all the rest, because otherwise you're gonna end up with books with lots of holes in them.
Yeah.
And I write long series too, so like I need to make sure it's consistent.
Fair.
And you also do character sheets, do you not?
Yes, I do. I do that usually for the main characters. So my character sheets are just, to start, are just GMC, internal, external GMC, the wound. Thank you, wound, like shout outs, like the wound thesauruses. Can we just like, yeah. And then basically from there, I have a profile sheet of what my characters look like for like headcanon. I spend a lot of time on Pinterest and have just sheets, so I like have their basic like physical characteristics and background, and those build out kind of as I write, as I find out more about the characters. But I do start out with something at least.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
Actually, now that you're talking about Pinterest as part of your process, is it not also part of your writing process when you're thinking about scenes?
Oh, sure. Yeah, for sure. Because I see the way I write is like I see the scenes like in like a movie in my head. So I very much have to see the scene like in like actually. So Pinterest is huge help because it helps me like visualize what I'm about to write. Sometimes I have to just like slow down though, because that's how I end up with way too much detail. Like I'm like, oh, let me just describe this building for the next 47 pages. Yeah, I cut my Pitch Wars book. I cut 19,000 words out of.
Wow.
And it was like mostly about dresses.
I mean,
and shoes. Don't forget.
And shoes, lots of shoes. Just shoes and dresses was mostly what that was.
I love it. All right. So my process. This is where it gets a little chaotic, is because every book is a little bit different for me. But largely speaking, I start with like some kind of random story seed that comes to me. It's normally a character with a specific situation that they're facing. And then from there, I kind of go, okay, I know the main character, the rough idea of who they are, and like what's their main problem at the start of the book. And then what I'll really do at that point is like, it pretty much comes into my head almost kind of fully formed as to like the basics of the story, as to like, okay, this is their inciting incident and this is who the character is. If there's like 2 or 3 main characters that might have a POV, I might have a rough idea about all 3 of them. So then basically what I do is I know the inciting incident, And I generally will like brainstorm a little bit of what if ideas about what is the, like when we talk about like story structure, these are like the two things I really know is what's the inciting incident and what is their dark night. What is their dark night of the soul? I don't really know much else about the story. As long as I know those two things, then I can kind of back in and I start doing character sheet. How I do them really depends book by book. Sometimes all I do is pull out the wound thesaurus. Sometimes I just go, I have an idea and I'll just run with it. But most times, the last couple of books that I've been doing, I take the wound thesaurus. I have a general idea about what this character's backstory is. So I'll go out and I'll pick all those things out of the wound thesaurus. And like I have it all like typed up in my Scrivener file. And then I'll just like start being like, oh, this is a trait this wound might create. And I'll be like, out of the list of the traits and the list of the attributes and stuff, I will make sure out of every single wound they have, I pick at least one from each wound. And then I compile that list together and be like, what does this person, who is this person now? And it kind of comes out like contradictions between their different wounds. And it gives me like a really good idea of who the character is. So yeah, that's kind of how I start. And I'm like, I have my main like POV characters. I know who they are. I know the inciting incident and I know the dark moment that we're working towards. And sometimes I will do more planning than that. And sometimes I won't. It really depends on the book.
That's so interesting to me because, we've talked before, but you're like, oh, you're at the midpoint. I'm like, I don't know, actually. I have no idea. We'll find out. I have no idea.
I studied a lot of like the beat sheets and all that kind of stuff. I tried it, like the very, very first book that never even queried. It was terrible. I tried completely pantsing. It was god awful, terrible process for me. And the product was terrible. The next book, same thing. I thought I would try the same process. Again, terrible. And then the third book happened. And before I did it, I went and I studied like structure and I studied a bunch of different stuff. And I tried to go super plotting. It was better, but it still wasn't the right process for me. And so since like that book, I dialed it back.
Because like it's like if it's not working for you though, don't do it. Like try some. There's so much out there. That's the like one advice that I'm over here. Like there's no such thing as real advice, but my advice is that you like if it doesn't work, it's okay. Do something else. There's so many different possibilities. Just try, like play with it. Like it's creative. Like
I tried each extreme. I tried both extremes and neither of them worked quite right for me. There were things that worked well from each, but in itself, it just didn't work. And so that's kind of how I landed in the middle. And each book I kind of take is what do I need to be able to write? And sometimes that means more structure. Sometimes that means less for me. But because I did the studying, I kind of intuitively know now. I'm like, oh, like as I'm like come up with ideas, because my process, like I said, is kind of chaotic, is I'll like be writing and I'll be like, I'll have an idea and I'll be like, oh, that is after the midpoint, but before the dark night. I don't know when exactly, and I don't know exactly how this is going to tie into the rest of the story, but I have this idea. It's going to end up in the story and it'll fit somewhere in here because like, just because I've studied structure, I know that that's where it'll land. And so I'll leave a note for myself in my Scrivener file in that section of the book. Like, and I label it and divide it in my Scrivener. I'll be like, this is Act 1. This is the turning point. This is the 2A, here's the midpoint, here's the 2B, here's the dark night, here's the third act. So like I break it out and then I just like leave notes randomly throughout my document as I come up with ideas. Sometimes it's like snippets of like conversation, dialogue, a thought process, or it's just like a random like word vomit on the page of like, you're going to do this because it's going to be so much fun. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, but I just throw it in there and I'll deal with it later. But that's because I studied the structure that I kind of know where it'll end up, even if I don't know exactly how it ties in yet.
Yeah,
that's how I plan.
Wait, so I like so like for me, I start with character. Phil sounds like you start with character. Madeline?
I start like a little bit. It depends on the book. It's normally not exclusively character though. Like it depends. Like right now I'm working on a world I'm going to write in, which I call Pillar World. And I've been doing the world building in that book for a couple of years now. I have no idea what story I'm going to tell in that world yet. I just know I want to build the world. It's going to be super cool. Like there's going to be a whole ecosystem of dragons and like I'm a big world builder. So I think that comes in sometimes, but once I start plotting, the characters and like their journey comes very, very early because I'm a very character focused writer, even for a big world builder where I want my external arc and the internal arc of the main character, like their growth arc, to be like super coupled. So like I may do a lot of pre stuff before the plotting. It's always a lot of character work.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense to me. So just most of our work is character focused. So
yeah. I feel like it comes with the territory with fantasy, like some people go the other direction where it's just like very like world, or just there's also the sides that are just very, very character focused, pulling in all of that. I don't know. I think it's good. Yeah. Okay. Are we ready for question 2? Okay, so the second question, which will probably, some of these are going to be longer and some of these will probably be shorter, but this one is, do you write straight through, like beginning to end, or do you hop around? And so, Aimee,
I have an idea. I think I know how you guys are going to answer this one.
Yeah. Okay, Aimee?
Yeah, I write straight through. I cannot. I call them Felicia's brackets because she puts like these like it stresses me out so much. I have to write chronologically. I think part of it is because I pants, I don't actually know where I'm going. And so if I tried to like write the end, like it might look, I just finished an entire book that I had to rewrite because I got to the end and I was like, I don't think this is the right book. And so it's a completely different plot now. It's like I had to rewrite the entire book and it turned in from this like, kind of healing spiritual journey book into like now there's like a murder mystery and like somebody's been arrested and they've been set up. And I'm like, this is totally, I don't know. But we reached the end and it was like, not right. So if I were to try and write the end first or jump around, it would be a mess. Like there's no way. So I definitely write chronologically. I can't skip a single thing without stressing.
Yeah.
Which is part of why I put you as a lawful pantser.
Yeah.
Yeah. Phil?
My first instinct was to say, "Oh, I write straight through," and then
no, you don't.
Aimee made a face. No, I don't. I largely in a progressively forward fashion. But like I mentioned before, like I'll be like writing one scene, like maybe in chapter 3, and then I'll like have an idea of, oh, what's going to be great is if I do this in like chapter 30. And so I'll jump forward, I'll like leave a whole bunch of notes, and maybe sometimes I'll partially write the scene and then I'll go back to chapter 3 and then keep writing forward from chapter 3. And I keep jumping back and forth like that as I go. It's generally progressively forward, but I hop around like a lot.
I was going to say, you cannot say right. You literally just handed me a midpoint. I had nothing else. So you're like, here's the midpoint I've written. I've written nothing else. But
Yeah. No, that's true.
Do that. It's amazing.
I do. Because I think I wrote 2 chapters. Because generally what I'll do is I'll write 2 chapters. Like this is when I have like a rough idea. Like I know who the characters are roughly, and I have the inciting incident, and I have the Dark Night of the Soul. I'll generally write 1 chapter from each POV character, and that gives me enough of a sense of who they are and their voice that then I go back and then I like just word vomit everything that comes to mind, and then I'll sort it out into where in the book it goes, and then I start from the beginning and kind of go forward and then back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
By the way, if this describes you, you should consider Scrivener.
Yes, for organizational of this mess. Yes.
I don't like Scrivener at all. I call it the devil. I call it the devil software. But this is what it's made for, is what's being described here.
For minds like mine, I think, is probably how this was created in the first place.
Yeah.
To organize the chaos. And I think, Maddie, which you're over here, I think you have a very different process as well.
Yeah, so for the most part, right, when we're talking about scene to scene, I am very I write start to finish, right? I will occasionally, like, if I'm really getting stuck on a scene, I will occasionally, like, do the bracket thing, but it's normally, like, a small part within a scene, like, I don't know how this conversation ends, but it's basically this, but I'm kind of stuck, so I'm going to move on and come back to it. Like, occasionally I do that.
Yeah.
But within a scene, I am mildly extremely chaotic. I
Okay.
will, like, because again, I will have kind of the whole scene outlined to an extent of like, okay, this is the impetus that's starting the scene. This is whether it's like something external that's coming in or a character goal or, and like how it's going to end and what the gaps and the realizations are. And like, I'll have an idea of that. But when I write it, I will like be writing random paragraphs and it's like you'll see I'm like slowly building 4 different paragraphs at the same time and hopping around and like be like, okay, let's add more setting here. We'll work on this conversation. Oh, we need to set that up here. And I like it's like there's just I'm like randomly vomiting words in a random part of the
I
page.
get it. I literally
don't get it. I'm like, I don't even break my books down by scene. I'm like, what are you talking about, scene? What's a scene? I don't know.
It is like been the most like important realization for me writing. Because like when I first started writing, very similar to you, Phil, I didn't really know much about the structure of plot, right? And how it comes together and like it was very vibes only. And so the first book I wrote was kind of all over the place and like there would be scenes that would just be like little slice of life moments where I'd be like, "Oh, this would happen." But does it do anything? No. Is it adding anything? No. Is it changing anything? No. And just a ton of that. And then I wouldn't show things that needed to be shown because I'm like, oh, I mean, we all know this happens. Like, yeah, it moves the plot forward, but like, psst, it's boring. We're going over here. And so once I started studying structure a lot, like it makes it all click so much better for me and in my brain. And so like, I don't know. I really like Story by Robert McKee, which is like it's sort of if you take the Save the Cat and then like it's tripping on acid. It's sort of like that. Like it's a lot. Like even after reading like 17, yeah, even after reading like 17 plot books, it's still a little bit like, whoa, this is a bit like intense for me. But it helps. It helps to think about it like I like it.
Yeah, I think so. In my Pitch Wars journey, I think I definitely I have this issue, right? It's called navel gazing. That's what my Pitch Wars mentor calls it anyway. Like writing these scenes where you as the writer are basically trying to figure out the solution on page. And then it stays in the book and then you have to go back and delete it. That is really a huge part of my process because I'm a writer, right? So that stuff does exist. Like I'm envious of people who plot just because their books are like so much cleaner. They tend to not like the messy, like they were probably not having to rewrite a whole book once they get to the end of it. You know?
Well, you'd think, but
like, so for me, it's like, yeah, that's part of my process too, is having those things in it and having to go back and like shred it apart. That's why my Pitch Wars book lost 19,000 words, right? So it's like,
yeah. I will say like at this point in my process, because like I've written a few books, I plotted a number of books. Because that first one I rewrote it like a number of times because it didn't have real structure, right? So I kept rewriting it. But at this point, like the last one I wrote, I've had like professional developmental editors, I've had a lot of beta readers. The structure of it has almost not changed at all. Like I've added a few scenes here or there and like I've had to change the beginning because I feel like getting the beginning right is always hard. But like the structure of it has been almost like I haven't cut a single thing. Like I even asked my developmental editor, I was like, we've got a little like chunky boy here. Like if there's anything that's like not needed, and they're like, you know what? Actually, I think you need to add like a couple of scenes here just to like prolong these parts. And I'm like, it's not what I wanted, but okay. But like it's surprising, like with the outlining, like it definitely has that versus the books where I haven't outlined, but then the outlines just take probably as long as it takes to write a first draft if you're pantsing, perhaps. I don't know.
I mean, I would say one of the cleanest books I've ever written is the book that's hopefully going on sub soon, and I wrote it in 4 days. And
which title?
Bootleg. I wrote it in 4 days, and it's literally I couldn't believe it because I sent it out to my betas, and it came back with there was like one of my betas was like I didn't find anything wrong with this book except for the first like half of it, she had no comments, and then there was like little line things. Like Phil read it, it was like very minor. I was like, this has got to be ruined. Like, there's no way. Like it's gonna be... And I don't know how. I guess I have no idea. Like, I think I have a theory that like even pantsers or plotters, you're just like doing it all like sub level, like you're doing it, and you surprise yourself along the way. You're like, oh, I didn't know we knew that. Like, wow, Rain, like you really.
It's that the intuitive side of it. Like, I feel like pantsers tend, like, in my opinion, as an outsider looking in, right? Because but like, I feel like there's a very deep intuitive understanding of how things work and how things change and what needs to happen. And like, they might not like always have like, oh, I want to like label it with all of these words and like put it in all these boxes, but like intuitively, I feel like they have so much better of an understanding of it than I do. Like, if I were to just come up with something, it would be like a hot smoking garbage. Like, I need all my labels and my little, you know.
I think like that explains me pretty well. I would say like I probably sound like an idiot when I talk about writing, even though I like have a degree in writing. And I was like, you know, because I'm always like, I don't know, like what is the midpoint? I don't know. I'm not sure. Are we this like beats? I don't know. Like what? I don't have any idea. But my stories do come out pretty clean. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just because I know how it works. Like I've read so much in my life, which is my other advice. Just like read everything, people.
Oh, absolutely.
And like, I think I'm like, oh, I'm following something. Like there's something that exists in my mind that's happening. It's just happening where I can't access it.
You've just internalized it.
Yeah. It's just like, really fun too. You're surprising yourself. You're like, oh, like, look, like I just finished a book. I'm like, oh my God, hey, like this character's dad is this guy. And like Phil was like, yeah, I knew that. It's like you hinted at it your whole other book. And I was like, no way.
I was like, I knew that. Did you not know that?
I'm like, no, I had no
idea. I like to think that I am like the silent little tiny ghost haunting your book.
That's wonderful. I love
it. Okay, maybe not that silent.
Yeah, not very silent. I'm like, no, I think that you're the reason I'm rewriting a book right now. So
you could be a haunting ghost.
Yeah,
I can be that. I can do that. I actually wanted to just take on to something, Maddie, I think you mentioned a little while ago when you said something about like you'll occasionally do brackets. And I realized I didn't mention that. Aimee calls them Felicia brackets because I use them heavily. And occasionally I will bracket an entire scene or entire chapter. And I will just move on and I'll just write something like, they need to learn this one thing, and this is the vibe I want in this chapter. Something happens, and then I will just move on. Because I like intuitively know I need space there for emotional growth or world building or something. And I'll just tag what it is like I can sense needs to be filled, but I just don't know what goes there yet because I pants a lot of my world building. And some of my plot, but a lot of my world building. So I'll just kind of like put a placeholder in and then I'll just keep going. And then, so by the time I like hit the end of draft 1, and I use that term very loosely, I think, for example, when I wrote the book that I'm currently querying, I had, what was it? So when the biggest the book ever was 150,000 words. That was when my draft 2 roughly. My draft 1 was 120. So like I had about 30,000 words of placeholder that I'd left. But then it was like very easy. I hit the end and then I jumped back in and worked my way chronologically. And just by the time I hit the end, I knew what goes there. And so I just went back into the beginning, filled all those in, and then I had 150,000 words. And then I was able to like, at that point, like I haven't, since I hit the end of like draft 2, because I put those placeholders in, and then I would like occasionally go back and leave more notes, just like I was leaving notes about the forward. I would have an idea about, I have an idea about what might go in that hole that I left. And I'll go back and I'll leave a note in the hole. And then I'll just keep moving forward. So by the time I get to my draft 2, I kind of know what goes in there. I go in and I fill all those things. And I guess my draft 2, that's generally like, I will get to the end and then I'll do like a line edit pass to like tighten things up and cut things, like make it read a little bit cleaner.
Mhm.
And that's when I throw it out to my beta readers. So like that's the version all you guys like. So technically that's the first completed draft, fully completed draft. So I don't know if you count that as a draft 1 or a draft 2. And that's what you guys read. But because I have this back and forth motion, it comes out actually relatively clean by the time I hit the end.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention that. Should have mentioned
That's definitely the chaotic part. I'm like, my brain is breaking.
Yeah, anytime I mention it to Aimee, she's like, no, please don't.
I tried one. I think I've tried before. I'll be like, hey, I think I'm going to use Felicia's brackets, and then I can never actually do it.
Yeah.
I'll do it, and then I'm like, no, I'll just be thinking about those brackets.
So freeing. It is so freeing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so on to question 3. So question 3 is, why do you think you plan or write the way you do? And I think this one starts with Phil.
I can do that. So 1, it brings me joy because I can just follow the joy and I don't have to like sit there and slog through a scene I'm having a hard time with. I just go where I'm happy and what I'm thinking about. 2, neurodivergent brain is how it wants to do it. I try doing it more strict and my brain rebels and goes, why are you doing this to me? And just won't write anything. So just follow where the words go.
I like that. So I think for me it is also similar to the like, it's just the way the neurodivergent brain gotta be. But I feel like if I try to do multiple things at one time, like think about multiple things at one time, it's very hard for me to hold multiple things in my head at one time. Like I really struggle with that. So like if I'm writing and I don't have certain things figured out, like when I had that like failed almost pantsing experience, like it was debilitating for me because it's like when I'm trying to write and I'm trying to come up with like the words and the prose, trying to then do this other thing. Like for me, it's almost like, okay, I'm in the middle of like, I don't know, what's something that's super like, okay, I'm painting these super detailed little lines and then you're asking me calculus questions at the same time. And I'm like, how am I supposed to do this at the same time? Like I can't do either of them. And like, I really like, it doesn't work for me. So like, I have to put my brain in context to think about things. Like when I did, I'm going to be writing a heist book after this duology. And I have this whole like character, like found family character group. I had to like sit down with an entire wall and color-coded sticky notes to figure out the character arc outline. Not a single thing of plot or action, but like, okay, these characters are in this stage at this time. They might make this statement. They might like literally just, I had to do that whole thing just to get them figured out. Cause like I couldn't, once I started outlining, I'm like, how can I outlining when I don't know what all these characters are doing this thing? And like, how can I world build if I like, it's just like, I have to put my brain in like, almost like focus on one piece and then put it all in front of me so I can see all of it at once. And that's the only way I can like connect it all, or like, I can't do it all at once, which I think is why my process is the way it is.
I think it's funny because I think we're all neurodivergent, but it's like different flavors. Like we're all different flavors of neurospicy. But like I too am neurospicy, and I get bored. I get bored. Like I couldn't sit. I've tried the plot before, and I just give up halfway through an outline. And then I end up like falling out of love with the book. I was at this really great seminar like many years ago. Lee Bardugo was there, who was like my hero, and she said like one of the things she said is like the act of writing is not about falling in love, it's about staying in love. And I always like love that sentiment. And like for me, it's like I don't stay in love if you make me plot it. Like I just like I'm not, I think I'm also a Pisces. I'm like, we write fairy tale romances. So like it's just I have to be in love. Like I have to want the creative process to be like flowing hard, and I can't. For me, that's like too structured. It's like too confining. I just get bored with it. I'm like, okay, this is not a book thing yet. Like, when is it going to be a book thing? Like, until it started, like, okay, like, until I have the Word document open, I'm like very uninterested. Like,
Yeah. You don't want to start world building for some high level abstract concept of a book 2 years in advance?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't even build magic systems in advance, which is like, it makes editing a real interesting experience.
I can imagine. Okay. So the next question is, when do you think you have the most inspiration and ideas? And I think it's my turn to start. So I think for me, it usually comes in the before I start writing phase, like when I'm planning, but usually it's actually even before the outlining phase. Like once I'm in the outlining phase, I'm kind of locked into it. It's sort of in the random, like when it's not actually what I'm working on yet. It's like a little procrastination project is when I have the most inspiration. Like I'll be working on something else and I'll like watch like be watching videos about like people like playing video games, and I'll be like, that's an interesting concept for a video game system for the magic. And I'm like, but what if you did it this other way? And then like all of a sudden I have like 5 pages of like diagrams, and like it's like when I get those random outside influences, I guess, that are just I can't plan them and I can't decide when I want to have them. I feel like those are
Okay, so I think it's funny you said like where do you get them? My brain was like in the shower, obviously. I mean,
there you go.
No, I mean in the process. I mean, considering I don't really have a process, I would say I actually get inspiration scene by scene. So like if I can't see the next scene, I just stop. Like I get stuck. Like that's where like writer's block comes in for me. So for me, it's just like scene by scene. I don't get any like real overarching. Sometimes I do. I was like, oh my God, I think I figured out how this book ends, but then can be a real disaster when it's not where the characters want to do. So for the most part, I get it just like scene by scene. Like, at the end of, I'm getting toward the end of a scene and the next scene's like starting to play in my mind. And I'm like, okay, great. There we go.
Yeah. There's something really nice about that of you almost like, you're almost feeding your own inspiration in a way, which is very fascinating to me because like I can't make it happen. Like I have to like just consume stuff tangentially related to what I'm doing. Like if I'm trying to figure out an outline, I'll read some plot books and wait for some like inspiration to hit or something. But, like I can't just like sounds nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I think it's not when you get stuck though, because then it's like that's when I'll be like Felicia will be like, you need to use your brackets. Like this is when you bracket and you just move along. And I'm like, I can't. I literally cannot, because that's how I can't go to scene 3 if I don't have scene 2, because that's when scene 3's inspiration comes. So you get stalled. Like you can just get really just stuck, and that's not fantastic. Because you're just like sitting around like doo-doo. Like there are times I'll literally stare at a blank screen for like 8 hours, just like do waiting. Hey, you gonna play that movie in my mind yet? Or like, no, okay. Yeah. Although that's usually a good indication that I need to do something to refill the well. Like I need to read a book, or I need to go watch a movie, or I need to play video games or something to like get out and people watch whatever. There's something missing usually if that's what's happened to me.
Yeah. I was going to say something, but we have a writer's block question later on, so I'm not going to mention it now. So instead, Phil.
All right. I'm being the planter here. I'm actually kind of in between both here, and I have a little bit of both. So my biggest one comes when I get the story seed idea, very much like what Madeline was saying. And generally one of my writing friends will end up getting a word vomit from me of my thought process as I'm like live having it. And then I'll just like go, what if this, what if this, what if this, what if this? And sometimes they just will come back hours later to a wall of text. Sometimes they'll throw in questions as I'm live doing this. And then once I have that, like that's generally when by the time I finish doing that, I will have an idea of the main characters, like a broad, rough idea, the inciting incident, and generally I'll know what the Dark Knight is.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's enough for me. I will copy paste screenshots of that conversation into my Scrivener. So it's part of my Scrivener document. And then that's when I will just dive in and write my first like POV chapters. And then I generally will have a second wave of inspiration of different scenes that might happen, like moments that might happen throughout the book. So there'll be like a wave of those. And then I start writing, and then I might get little ones as I'm writing, kind of like what Aimee was saying. Like she finds it in every scene. I don't find it in every scene I get inspiration like that, but I will have moments like that where maybe I'll get like 6 chapters in and I'll just have a moment of inspiration about like 3 more scenes that I know will eventually happen, and I'll go and I'll write those in. They just kind of happen sporadically.
Yeah, that's cool.
So a little bit of a mixture of both, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, what kind of core idea do you write towards or outline towards? If that makes sense. And I think Aimee's starting this one off.
Yeah, so I think for me, I would say I'm usually writing toward like GMC. I'm just following my characters. So, and I typically do have a wound. So I'm also trying, and because I write, romantasy, even though I hesitate to like put that label on my book for a lot of reasons, it's like a whole nother YouTube video for a brand. But like there's like, love cures, whatever, wound. So I have the wound. So I'm usually writing toward like emphasizing the wound and then like, thinking about how my characters can like heal each other's wounds. That's basic. They're primary wounds, obviously, not like they're everything. But so I'm usually writing toward that. I'm just like, what does my character want and why are they broken? And then we see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. This is the chaos coming out. I write to the dark moment to break them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm writing for the entire time, is how am I going to break this person and how bad can I make it? Yeah.
Yeah. To make it unreadable, actually, the last time I heard one of these.
You were very good about
I came up with this idea. It wasn't that bad. And I was like, oh, wait, it was that bad.
Oh, the poor trauma. I think mine is actually very similar, which I think this is actually kind of interesting that this one is actually a lot more similar than I thought it would be. But when I'm outlining, right, and I'm kind of coming up with the character ideas, I do start with, because I really, what is it called? Story Genius? No.
Yeah, that is this blah book for sure.
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Story Genius, where it starts with the idea of like, and I don't quite go, they normally start with like, what's this ideal or this lesson they need to learn, and how do you make this the character that like most needs to learn that lesson, and like, why haven't they, you know what I mean? Like they build it out a slightly different direction than me, but definitely thinking about who the character is, why they're so messed up, and like really building that. Like I really go into the backstory trauma a lot. But I really like to see how they can struggle the most trying to grow, and then trying to actually figure out like what is the thing they need, and like how do I, like it's very similar to the goal, motivation, conflict thing. Like how do I get them there? How do I contrast their motivation with that in a way where it looks incompatible but then is compatible? And like I don't know, it's very, very similar. Very similar.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like your character focus, right? When you're writing a character focused story, then your goal is like going to be like, what does my character want? And if it's not, then you really should read Goal, Motivation, Conflict by Deborah Dixon. I'm just plugging books all day long. Like, who else needs a book plug? But yeah, I mean, like we were just talking about this last night, I think, Phil, about like if you don't have that, then you're like missing the passion or the like the spark. Like I call it the oomph. Like if my book doesn't have enough oomph, like I don't feel like it's having a flavor, it's usually there. That's where the thing is. Yeah. That's what's broken, is my GMC is not strong enough, or it's not big enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that's my favorite thing about like art in general, especially like writing as an art, right? Is being able to like touch people and people to understand these stories and relate to these characters. And like, even if it's not struggles that they've had, and like, I want them to be able to empathize with it and really feel it, and for it to really like hurt but then like feel a little better afterwards, you know, with so the next one is, how often do we face writer's block that isn't actually burnout? Yeah, so like how often do we run into writer's block? How do we deal with it? Whatever. And we're not necessarily talking about like burnout.
I will say most of the time, what I think is writer's block is often burnout of some kind, and I generally need to go refill the well. But when I do face writer's block, a lot of the time it's because I've realized I did not do enough character development and I didn't understand a character well enough, whether that's a main character or another character. So I will generally go back to the well. If it's not a burnout problem where I need to just refill the well entirely, I'll just go back and go back to the character sheets and just work with that, play with that, really just try to understand my characters, and that generally helps me move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, like, again, setting aside the burnout thing, right? Because I feel like all writers probably, but all people probably deal with burnout sometimes. But
Yeah.
I definitely think that for mine, it's sort of like what I talked about before, where I'm trying to do things that I shouldn't be doing at the same time. Like if I haven't actually outlined enough, or I'm trying to like wing some part of it, and it's like I can't think about that when I'm writing and I'm trying to force it, I tend to get stuck. And I normally have to like pull myself back. Like I think most recently I was struggling with trying to fix the progression of a like romance arc, and I was really struggling with figuring out like how like this the small incremental stages and how they change. Like I had to go back and make like a fake outline, not like a fake outline, but like a version of my outline that was literally just every interaction they had and how it impacted them, so that I could look at that like I had to isolate it, and then I could look at it and play with it and fix it, and then I can go back to what I need to do. And that's normally what the issue is for me.
Yeah, so I think for me, I talked about like if I can't see the next scene, then I experience writer's block. I just halt. But I think also kind of to your point, Maddie, I feel that when you don't, and Phil, you made this point too about character development. Like a lot of times that's could be the culprit. I have a writing professor who would make us sit down and just write a day in the life of our character, right? Like just like what kind of shoes do they put on? Like what are they eating for breakfast? Like get to know your character, just write it down, right? 5 pages about, what it looks like for them to sit at their table and drink coffee. Like learn kind of that way. And that's for me like navel gazing, right? It's like a part of my process. So like my characters do that on page sometimes, but then I have to cut it out later. That's like I have to learn more about my characters. But I think like the one thing I did want to like mention is I think the other thing that all writers face, depending no matter where you are or what you're doing or how you're publishing or others, imposter syndrome. And like I definitely feel like writer's block for me happens when I'm going through imposter syndrome. Like when I'm like I have a book that's like not doing well on sub, or I was in the query trenches for like 6 years, and it took me 5 attempts to get into Pitch Wars. Like all these heartbreaks and down, like when I'm going through that, it's very hard to like feel like it's worth it to write. Like, it's, of course you hear all the time, like, oh, you should write for yourself, whatever. Like, yeah, okay. That's like, well and good. Nice. Whatever. Like all writers are writing to like touch people. Like we're all a little bit narcissistic. Like we're all writing because we want somebody to read what we're writing. And so like, whenever that's like not happening or not being made possible for whatever reason, that makes me feel like it's my fault or I've done something wrong. I find it very difficult to write.
Yeah, I think that's really valid. Yeah. Relatable.
Yeah. And that's when you need good friends, by the way. That's like my plug for good friendship.
Yeah, really. Friendships, building community. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the next question is, do we tend to over or underwrite our first drafts? And for me, this has actually been changing as I, like, throughout my writing journey, as I learn more about myself and how to do these things and how to understand them. Because I feel like with each book, I do more research and I learn about it more, and then my outlining and my prep gets more intense. And with that, I have kind of gone from being an overwriter or just a wrong stuff writer where I write too much, and then also I don't write a lot of the things I need to have, right? Like there's a lot of developmental work that has to happen, like early on in my writing to now at this point, I'm sort of an underwriter in that I write like the last first draft I wrote was very too tight. It was too tight and too quick pace, and it didn't have any of the breathing room. So like, it was just like very, and so nothing hit as well as it needed to hit because it didn't have quite enough time for things to grow in the breathing room. So like that's kind of like where I've ended up is like I've got all the stuff there. It just needs to be stretched out a little bit. So like a little bit of an underwriter, which is surprising for me.
Yeah, I'm also an underwriter, which I think is surprising. I always say I write short books and long blogs. Like I definitely my Pitch Wars book. So, which it was my very first draft of that. I was missing an entire POV. Like I finished it and I sent it to one of my friends. I was like, "There's 60,000 words. Like I just wrote a middle grade. Like and she was like, "This is missing a POV. Like you need the love interest POV." And then actually, he turned out to be like my favorite character I've written of like.
Oh, we love him.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He shows up in all my books now. Every book that's in that world, he shows up. So it turns out, but that was like missing a whole POV. But I'm just like, whatever. It's a book like thing. Here you go. So I definitely am an underwriter. Most of the time. Mm-hmm. I've had a couple of books I've overwritten, but mostly I'm an underwriter.
Mm-hmm. For me, I think it depends on which draft we call draft one. If it's the version where I get to the end and I still have my placeholders, then definitely underwriter. Mm-hmm. I think that's probably more of like a 0.5 draft. Draft one, when I fill in all of the placeholders, definitely overwritten. And generally what I'm doing and cutting out after that point is really line level tightening and cutting out the navel gazing. Because being the partially a pantser here, I do have and especially since I have character focused, there is a fair amount of navel gazing that I end up cutting out later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's like, I have a struggle because I'm like, oh, my Pitch Wars book, I cut 19,000 words. But then, caveat, I added 23,000 back in. So it's like, it was underwritten with a bunch of trash. Like, it was like, once you took out all that. So I think, and then it was, it turned out just right or whatever, Goldilocks. But it's hard to say, because it would seem like, oh, you're an overwriter, you cut all that words. Like, no, actually, like, I had to put a bunch more back in.
That's from subsequent drafts, your first draft.
Oh, my very first draft was, missing a lot. Usually for me, it's, to Phil's point, I'm cutting out navel gazing. I'm adding it to Maddie, your point. I'm adding an emotion. Like I'm adding in feelings. Like, okay, how do I make people actually like care about these people?
I think the only thing I generally add in is occasionally some clarity because I didn't make it clear enough because fantasy, and scene description because I normally on my first drafts don't write enough of that. But pretty much everything else is cut.
Okay, so the next one is how many drafts does it take your book to be ready? And that could mean query ready, agent ready, ready to publish, ready, like whatever your stage is. And if you want to like summarize what those drafts are real quick.
So again, I think this depends on how we're counting my drafts because I'm chaotic. But if we count I get to the end of draft one and with no placeholders, draft one, then I do an edit myself, like going and anything I flagged as developmental and like doing some tightening and like first round of tightening on like line level and cutting out navel gazing. That would be draft 2 for me. And that's when I normally send it to beta readers. And then I get beta readers back, do a draft 3. And if I feel I still need another round of beta readers, then I will send it out again, come back, and so draft 4. So to get query ready, I'm generally draft 3 or 4 for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for self-published track, right? I have the first draft, right? And then my second draft is normally a self-developmental edit of all the stuff that as I was writing, I realized I needed to like change or tweak or fix. Like normally I like keep a running list as I'm writing. Because like I don't re-outline as I'm writing. I get to the end and then I go back and do it. So that's probably the second draft, is a self-developmental edit. And then I do another developmental edit after I've gotten some combination of developmental editor's feedback and beta reader feedback. And then I do another big edit overhaul. And then after that, I think what would be optimal for me, because I played around a little bit this time and it wasn't quite right, but then I think I need to do my own, like, not like a line level, but like I don't know what you'd call it, but it's not fixing developmental stuff. It's just going through and like making it better, but not quite at like focusing on the line level yet. It's like, okay, let me like weave like it's like a mini developmental edit, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
A developmental line edit, and then getting more feedback, and then another like a proper line edit where I'm just reading for prose, the like read out loud as you go stage, and then copy and proof. So I think I'm normally around the like, is that 7? It's between like 6 and 7, depending on if I combine one of those.
Yeah, so I have no idea. My first book that went on sub, I think, was draft 13 or 14. I'm like, I don't know. And then like the book that my agent has right now is draft 3. So it's like, I don't actually know how many drafts it takes. It depends on the book. It depends on what's gone wrong. Like, it depends on what you call a draft, because even my editing process is pretty like not normal. It's like, I'll like, ooh, over there, and then I've like given up halfway through my edit, and then I start from the beginning. Also, the first half is really shiny, and then what happened, I don't know. I quit 5 times before I got like the second half, so I'm not really sure. I would say in general I have the same kind of general like function, just getting there is different. I try to do self-developmental stuff first, and then send out a betas, and then come back and then do line stuff. I'm also like a line level heavy writer. Like, I start line level work as soon as I finish the book. So I think that comes from having like a background in like lit-fic and like having a creative writing degree. Like, you get really pounded on that stuff. Like, every word choice, it matters, because you're telling the most important story of your life about lit-fic professor sleeping with his grad student. I'm sorry for the 50th time. Like, I don't know. Like, but so I think it comes from like that background of having that, and then it goes to my agent, and then my agent has usually we do like 1 or 2 rounds of edits, and then it goes out on sub, and it goes through the rigmarole of the traditional publishing after that.
Yeah. All right. So then the last question I have here is, what challenges do you face, or do we individually face, that are unique or can be attributed to our way of drafting? And then there's the second part to that, which is like, what do we admire about other ways of drafting? So I think in terms of challenges, I think that I can have a lot of issues if I don't know or don't realize I need to figure something out in advance and I get too far into the process, because it is a lot harder for me to rework major changes in, just because once I have like a full draft, right, and I'm like, okay, I need to fix this one thing, right, it's really hard for me to pick apart all the threads that are already woven together, because at that point it's kind of hard to think about it in a small context, right? Like, I can't just think about this one thing, because now there's 87 other things that it affects. And that's definitely challenging for me. The other thing about that can be difficult is sometimes when I'm trying to super focus on preparing a certain thing, like say I'm trying to work on like building out my characters, and I really want to figure out like, okay, who are they? What are their behaviors, their mannerisms? How do they act? Why do they act the way they act? Like, do they have specific ways of speaking? Like, what kind of past have they gone through that would affect like the things that would stand out to that? Like, right, like all that kind of stuff. Sometimes I can get bored with it, and I can get kind of like, if I'm not having specific inspiration, but I'm trying to get super nitty gritty on this one thing, it can be hard for me. And then sometimes I don't do as much as I should. And then later on when I'm writing, I'm like, why didn't I do this already?
Wait, can I ask, so you plot out what you're describing in advance?
Yes.
Holy crap.
Okay. I have, okay, because I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah, because you haven't seen,
I'm like,
this is one of my like world Bibles, just for an example. So this is the one that's going to be a found family, like a group, right? So there's like a lot of different relationships in the group. I divided the plot into 5 phases. There's the initial fake front phase where they're all being their like fake selves, and then the like open hostility, and then the like they're sort of trying to work together, but it's really fragile, and then it all cracks apart, and they're all in their dark night, and then they can finally work together, and they're like a strong group, right? And I came up with, for every character, 3 pages per part to break them down. So like I have their lie, their wound, their fears, their flaws, how everything goes back and forth, ways that their wound could be triggered, basically fallout for how their wound could come up. And each one's different based off the stage. And I have like history things and things that could come out, and like I'll have like, okay, now in this stage they'll have, okay, what's their motivation for joining at the beginning, and then what, like, how is their mannerisms going to come up, and like I have like there's a lot of
Yeah, I mean, I do a much smaller version of that for the whole book, but I think it's fascinating that you plot out like mannerisms and things like that. I don't know. It's like I wait for them to speak to me, I guess. It's like
they don't talk to me though. Like
yeah, that's wild.
Say, like where the characters want to go, and what if your characters don't want to go that way when you're writing it. I literally do not comprehend that, because that has never even remotely happened to me. Like I can't understand that at all. Like I don't.
I have another friend who plots really extensively too, and I said to her like, "Oh, well, maybe this isn't working because the character is not speaking to you yet." And she's like, "Aimee, that does not happen to me."
Yeah.
I don't like how do you function? I don't know.
Yeah. I have to really like sit back and think about it, and like I have to be intentional about it, because if I don't think about it intentionally, I just don't think about it, right? Like, and then it doesn't happen. It won't occur to me as I'm writing. Like I had this problem with because the beast came. One of the things at the beginning was it was kind of hard to understand the character's motivation, because I hadn't sat down and figured out like what was her situation before and her relationship with like her family, and like what exact sequence of events brought them there. And I didn't like it's not like I thought it up while I was writing. Like it just was vagary going on, very vague, very like shenanigans. And then I had to like go back and, okay, now I'm gonna write 2 whole pages of the timeline and backstory and then weave it back in again. Like
it's impressive. It's just, it blows my mind a bit. I mean, I think in the end we all end up in the same place, right? Because what you're describing, I'm like, yeah, that just happens for me. Like whilst I'm in the middle of writing book 2, I'm discovering that like this guy has this random dad that Phil knew about the whole time. Like it's happening in my head somewhere, and you're putting it on paper, but they're still like speaking. Your characters are still speaking to you.
It's a different way of like, it's the intuitive versus like very like intentional side, kind of like that disparity, which is very interesting. Like,
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Which I think is why we're doing this, because it's just we're talking about this because it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I would say like that's exactly the struggle for me, right? Is like what we're describing, what we're going back and forth, is that I have to rewrite a lot. Like my editing process is like not that great because I don't know. And I write, like I said, I write long series, like like you did, Maddie, and I have books like yours, but they don't happen until the book's written, which means that I then have to go, maybe not even back through. I have to go back through and read 4 other books that this one thing I've just discovered now affects. Like I have to go through. Oh, no. So I mean, I just finished like a 13 or 14 book series, and now it's like I change one thing and it's like, oh, well, I have to go back to this one and that one and this one. And so that is very frustrating to me. And I really wish, like, anytime anyone tells me they know the ending to their book before they begin it, I'm like really jealous. Like, I really, really wish I knew. I mean, I just think it's like, so for me, it's very like, I like what I do, right? It's the way that I function. I think it's interesting that my brain just surprises me like that. It's fun. At the same time, I also think there's something kind of freeing in the concept of like you being able to control your character's journey. Like I feel like I'm on like a leash being yanked around by my characters. Like it would be nice to just be like, no, sit down. You're going in the box. Like we're doing the thing. Like for me, I feel like that would be freeing. Like Like I would have more like control over my own mind, like in some ways, which would be nice, but I don't. So that is what it is. But when other people and plotters like show me their stuff, I'm like, man, like you must be able to bang out a book just like because it's like all done. Like you've basically already written it. Like that must be nice. Like you're not just getting in the middle of your thing and being like, I actually don't know if this character is like actually who I think they are. Now I have to go rewrite my whole book again.
Yeah, you think that, except then you have to reference like 18 notes because you're like, crap, I know I charted out the moon phase, and if I mention that it's super dark, but it's actually a full moon, I'm gonna be wrong. And then I spend like go through 13. That slows it down.
I'm like, oh wait, hold on. I have a whole thing about that actually. It's like the first thing in my book of everything is moon phases.
Yeah.
With like the days I'm like counting it out, I got calendars. I'm like, but that's the stuff I'm fixing at the end, which is very frustrating.
Yeah, that's normally like that kind of thing I do when I'm finishing the first draft.
Yeah. And I will add in, because I realized I forgot to say this, the like, what do you admire about the other ways of drafting? I do think there's something super appealing and romantic and just like passionate about the concept of pantsing. Like, I feel like the idea of it sounds so cool, of just being able to write down and like pour your soul out into something to like I feel like there's something very appealing about that concept. And the few places where I am able to do that, which for me is mostly in my prose, right? Because that's the only, like, I'm not coming up with like, like occasionally maybe a line of dialogue, but for the most part, it's the prose where I'm like, I don't need to talk about this, but then like I'll come up with like a paragraph that kind of just comes out. And that's like the best lines of my whole book are like those moments, almost always like atmospheric descriptions of the weather or the setting that like parallels like the character's internal journey or like how they're perceiving things. Like that's normally like the best lines of all of my books, at least in my personal opinion. So the idea of like that being a whole book would be so cool. Be able to just start writing stuff. Like, I don't know. It'd be nice if it didn't take 3 years.
I think it is like, if you think of like the stereotypical writer, you're probably thinking of a pantser, because that's like that is like, it is how it is, kind of. It is people like, oh, you just like inspiration hits and like I sit down and I write and things come out, and that's like
you're chained to the keyboard.
Yeah, it's great until you have to edit it. Like there's all, it's not just like writing the book, like there's a whole other thing that happens after it,
Yeah, and most of it is editing.
Yeah, but I can write a book in 4 days and then spend 2 years editing.
Yeah. So Phil?
So I guess my biggest challenge is, and I don't know if this is so much with process, but like I think I mentioned before, I don't I pants my world building quite a bit, and I generally also not very good about like visualizing the physical aspects of the book. Like I know my characters inside and out, but physically, where are they? Often I don't know what my characters look like. I have no idea. Like I'm like, they're short. That one's tall. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. So trying to like get those things back in later can be a little bit hard for me, but especially when those gaps with like world building or society building, like I might know the character's personal history, but might not know like the societal cultural history that impacts the character in the scene. And I will Felicia bracket those. And sometimes I end up with so many and they build up too much that I cannot move forward until I fix the ones in the past. And that can be incredibly painful. And I would say that because like I follow where the fun is. I follow the fun when I write. And sometimes I get to a point where I followed the fun so much and I'm so deep in that there's too many placeholders that now I have to go and do the work. And I have to do all the work all at one time.
Yeah.
Built up so much. And most of the time I can get to the end and I have figured it out just like it comes to me as I move forward. And I fill that in and I'll leave a note and I can go back and it's not work. But there's the odd time where I run up against it and I cannot move forward without it. And at that point it is work. It's no longer following the fun. And that's painful. So like Maddie, you doing yours? I'm like, yeah. See, I wouldn't run into that problem if I did the plotting. But on the other hand, if I did just like pure pantsing, that would be fun too because I always have like I don't know the ending. Like I generally like I know the dark moment that they're like the dark moment and sore point that the character is going to have to overcome. I kind of know what that situation is and the pain that they're going to feel, but I absolutely have generally no idea how they're going to get out of it. And what that ending is going to be. But the few times, like, there's a couple times that I thought I knew, and I plotted and I wrote towards that plot. And every single time I had thought I knew, I was completely wrong. And then I had to rewrite like a third of my book. So if I had just leaned into the pantsing, I wouldn't have had that problem. So like, I kind of have a little bit of like, I have the benefits of both sides, but I also have a little bit of the problems of both sides too.
I think it's interesting because, like, so we're talking about where you do the work. It's like Maddie, you do it at the beginning, Phil, you do it at the end. I do it while I'm writing. So it's like we have three different, right? Like it's like because I can't bracket. So I'm literally doing the work in the middle of it because I'm like, oh shoot, I've come to a place where I don't have a name. Let me go like spend an hour on Pinterest and like Googling like random like translations to make up some name. I spent, and then it's like, oh, what am I writing? Okay, right. I'm writing. It's like even the little things, like I cannot leave. Like I have to. So I do all of that work, which I think would be very hard for me to do in one sit. Like I could not one sitting. I mean, obviously put more, but like one go. Like I need the other stuff, the fun stuff, to like break it up. Like if I wouldn't finish the book if I had all of the work in one place.
No, that's a good point. Like, and sometimes, like I say, occasionally things will come to me and I'll fill them in. But when you're saying like names, for example, because I don't do like, I have my main core cast and my, important secondary characters, I know them and they've been named, but almost every other like random character, tertiary character, city, country, whatever, I don't name those. I will occasionally, if a name comes to me as I'm writing, I'll plop that in there. But a lot of times I'll be like, city by the ocean, the person who does this, the person who does that, and I'll just bracket it. And I'll just name it the same bracket the entire time. And then when I get to the end of the book, when I reach that like 0.5 draft at the end, I will search for all my brackets. I will make a document of all of my brackets and what I need to figure out. And then I will be like, oh, I have 5 place names, 3 females, and like 2 kids, 5 families, and like 6 guys that I need to figure out names for. I will just like randomly go to a friend group and be like, hey, names for these people, here's their descriptions. And then people will throw names at me. And then that just gets slotted into the book all at one go. So yeah, I do it in one sitting.
It's probably more like, for me, I think it sounds to me to be actually like probably less wasteful of time because when you're in this space, you're in the brain space, like you're already like you don't have 3,000 tabs up because you're on like name.com and then baby name this and then like this translator that, which is how I
normally just like block out a day and I hammer out all my problem solving all in one go.
Yeah.
But because I have the full draft sitting there and I know like the vibe of what needs to go in those placeholders, generally speaking, because I have the full book, like it's a lot easier for me to do it at the end than if I try and stop and do it in the middle. But occasionally, like I said, sometimes in the middle of the book, I cannot move forward without solving not all of those, but like some of them. And that's when it's painful because I don't have the full scope of the story yet. So I don't know how to commit to figuring out that one problem. It's a commitment problem is what it is. So it's, but I think you're right. Like Maddie does it at the beginning, you do it as you go, and I do it largely at the end, all the problem solving to fix it and tie it all together.
Yeah, that's kind of very fun. And on the very lawful plotter end of it, before I even start naming characters, I create a whole naming language. Like I conlang a language for the people for each nationality or ethnicity. And then I create a generator with code that can build all the names for me with all the rules and the phonotactics. Yeah. And then I have lists of possible names. Then I just cross them off the list as I'm working and need them.
Holy crap. Whereas I'm like looking over here, I have a writing research folder. It's like literally like vintage surnames of the 1900s, Social Security Administration top name of the 19. It's like literally all just like name stuff. It's like like top names of the 1920s. Like it's like I have to scroll through and find what vibes with me. That's
okay. What I'm loving about this is you see the the lawful. Sorry, you're over here with lawful plotter, with like doing it very step by step methodical, and then you have the lawful pantser with it's a bit of a pantser process, but it's also kind of like it's a process. I name my characters by being like, I think it might have these many syllables, and I've already used this as a starting letter for somebody else's name, so I need to pick a different part of the alphabet. And that's how I choose my characters' names. Like I'll be like, oh, I already use an A and a D and a C. That's at the beginning of the alphabet. So now I need to go and use something from the back half.
I'm literally just like all vibes. I'm like, what is this? I was just naming, because I had a couple characters in one of my books I'm editing that didn't have last names, like right before I came to talk to you guys. And I was like, I had to Google their first names and like, where did I cut? What is this? Where did this name come from? So I can find an appropriate matching last name. Cause I don't even know because I put this in here 2 years ago. And like, so it's like, yeah, I think for me, it makes a lot more sense what you guys are describing, which is one of the reasons I say don't like follow it, because my process doesn't make a lot of sense. Like it's not good. If you have like time constraints, my process is not good.
I mean, I feel like if you have time constraints, mine probably is not a good choice either.
Yeah.
Like how many hours alone have I already worked on Pillow World? Like I stream 2 hours a week on it, and I've been doing that for a long time. And I've done like so much more work on it outside of that. Like I do more work than needs to happen for most
people. Well, I mean, I think we all do, right? Because like you have to know things that your reader will never have to know. I think everyone has. Like I think that's part of it, is like knowing things your reader doesn't, which also kind of sucks because it's like, I really wish my reader knew this really fun thing that I spent all this time on that they're never going to know about. Like,
I know.
Yeah. Part of me is like, cause I'm doing, prepping for like pre-order incentives, and some of that stuff I'm working into pre-order incentives. Like I'm going to make a whole calendar. Cause like I made a calendar for my one book that's coming out where like I researched like a lot of like cultures that live in this kind of climate area and what the like etymology and origins of the names for the months are, and like use that to like figure out like what the names of the months would be and like what's happening in the world and like all this stuff that like you barely get in the book. And like I'm gonna make a little calendar, like a little like thing, and you can have that if you pre-order my book.
Yeah. See, or so I'm like, I actually don't. The series that I just wrote, it doesn't. There are never any months or days named. I'm like, do they have weekends? I don't know. The word weekend is never used because it's just like that's way too. I hate time math. Like I'm not into it. I mean, it does. I have it plotted out on like a calendar based on like my like our days or whatever. But like, is that the calendar that's used in the world? No idea. No idea. Probably not.
You just needed to organize it in some way for you.
I needed to make sure that I didn't have giant plot holes, right? But like,
well, especially when you added the time travel aspect.
Well, yeah, because somebody told me, wouldn't that be super cool? And I was like, oh my God, it would be actually. Let me go write like 8 books about that.
That's great.
It's fun.
Okay, I have a question. So if you could, like, if your brain was just flexible and it wanted to do whatever it wanted to do, like, what style do you think you would pick?
Ooh. So like if we didn't have to be the way that we were.
Yeah, if you could just make your brain work how you wanted it to work, ideally, like, what would you pick?
I feel like I would go with something a little bit more like Phil, where I still like honestly coming up with stuff is my favorite part. Like I love being able to deep dive into like, let's make this map and let's do it. Like that's one of my favorite parts. So I feel like I still want that, but I would want to be a little bit more flexible in where I don't have to do that. And I can just do all the fun stuff that I'm inspired to do. And then I can just start writing and either leave notes or figure it out as I go. But that like I wouldn't be crippled by that, and like I could move more of that work into the drafting process. I feel like that would be clutch.
I would probably mostly be like where I'm at, but probably a little bit more, not so much plotting the like the plot structure, but a little bit more with the maybe the world building, like those societal, like I don't know what this is and like how this impacts the plot, like figure out that a little bit more before I'd start. My brain just can't. But I think if I could, I would probably hit less roadblocks. If I could like plan, oh, this is how this society and the world building would impact the plot. Like this is what it is, so that when I run into it, I can just refer to notes and be like, oh, this is how that impacts that, instead of making it up at the time. I think that would probably be a little more helpful for me.
So I would definitely, so I like the way that I draft because it is magical. It's like, oh, like it's like what you think about when you think about like the artist, writer, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's like, if it's not just about drafting people, like I say it again, like it's not, that's it. So like, I would actually rather be like you, Maddie, because my editing process would probably look a lot better than it currently does. And like, I would like to know those things so I don't have to go back and fix them all, like all the time, constantly. And the other thing is, because I am in TradPub, like I just wrote this series, right? But I have no idea if like what in this series gets published, if anything, etc. Like I don't have control over what gets published or what gets bought as much. So for me, it's like I could publish a book and then discover something 4 books later in a series that, and then I can't go back and I can't go back and fix that, right? So it's like I would like to have like more control over that, so I didn't stress about having to write an entire series and then maybe not even sell it. But I have to write the whole thing because I don't know the things. Like I don't know the information to like make sure my series is consistent if I don't write the whole series, which is very annoying.
Yeah, I can imagine, just even with my level of planning, which I think we've all learned is a lot, still when I go to outline the second book, because it like recontextualizes the things that have to happen in the first book, like things that don't need to have a lot of narrative focus or be fleshed out in book 1, but like if they're not going into book 2, they do need to be fleshed out, and you do need to have all this background information and stuff woven in, and like I still had to go back and change things, and that's with all of that, so I can only imagine.
Yeah. So I think it's like, for me, it's the difference between drafting and editing, which is like such a different thing, right? It's like, I love drafting. That's because it's fun and it's magical. Like I hate editing. I really do. I really hate it. Like I don't like having 13 drafts before my agent can see a thing. Like it's, like, so I would definitely choose, in general, when I think about the concept of the whole book and the whole process, I would choose what you do, Maddie, for sure.
I don't know why, but that feels really sweet. I get people that like, because I vlog my writing process a lot, and I have people all the time that comment on my videos and either like, I'm so glad I don't write like you, or like, I'm so glad I don't write fantasy because that just looks like a lot. And I'm like, you don't have to be like me, people. I'm sorry.
But like, here's the other side. Like, I like Aimee. Like, I also, because like I have like a little bit of a structure in my mind, but like, and I have like those broad like word vomit in future scenes kind of thing. But generally, I only have like a clear-ish plotted idea of like the next like maybe 3 chapters. And then once I get to the end of those 3 chapters, I have enough notes written forward for me that I can now outline the next 3 chapters. And then like I'm doing it like little bit by little bit. So I can still have that kind of like discovery joy process as I go through, but with a little bit of structure on top of it. So like I kind of get that. But then like again, I've run into the plot problems. But I feel like each side has its own benefit. Like there's definitely benefits to both sides. Like you get the joy, but then like Maddie, you have now that you're going to publish and everything, all of this other stuff that you've built and the time that you've put in, not only did you enjoy doing that, but you have like this extra stuff that like, that's the stuff the fans eat up, right?
That's true.
You already have it. You have like all of that stuff that is like, here you go. Like people want to know, it's all there. Me, I would be like, I don't know what's on the other side of the planet, people.
Yeah, and I'm like, you want to know their climate? I got you.
I'm like,
I've
I
got
don't
endless
know.
cutscenes. Like I'm always like, if you are one of those people who wants extra scenes, like I write the way you, like, I write the way you
And
want.
see, I don't,
Yeah.
being in the middle of the road, I don't really have either of those because I don't have, like, there's been a couple cutscenes that I had. It's because it didn't serve the story. And sometimes it's not even like, it's not that it was cut out because we didn't have page space. It doesn't even fit anymore because I've changed the story. So I don't have cutscenes. I don't have all this extra, like, I'm literally like, I guess you could say almost economical. Like what ends up on the page is like what's there, and I don't have really anything else.
Yeah.
Um,
Which there's something like, I do feel like that sounds like the most economical.
It does. Yeah, I'm like, this is the least waste of time method, I think, probably. Like,
yeah. Good value. Good value there.
But then, like, I don't know much else about the world. Like, whereas I feel like you guys probably have a little bit better with your organizational and like more methodical processes. You probably have, like, you have world Bibles.
I mean,
you know what I got? Not that.
I definitely, because I definitely have a lot of world building, like a lot of books. Like you saw them like when we were on retreat. Like I came out, like got these like 6 giant notebooks, like full. Like, okay, you said you're not a plotter. I'm like, oh no, I did this after I finished the book. It's like,
yeah.
To like keep that series like consistent, but I'm always adding to it too, which is like. That means a lot of time you have to go back and add to other books, which is very difficult when you're in trad publishing. So it's like, I do like, I wish that I didn't have, but it is fun. Like I just was telling Phil recently, like I wrote a sex scene that like never even went in a book. I didn't cut it out. I just wrote it because I was like, I want to know what these 2 characters, like, it's like an X situation. It's not like they're not together, so you're never gonna show them to, like, I'm like, but I'm like, it's so spicy, and it's like every time I talk about it, Phil's like sending me the eyeballs, like I'm like, it's the craziest scene I've ever written, and I'm like, that's the kind of stuff that like I would like if anybody ever wanted it. It would be good to publish on a blog or like whatever, like
newsletter magnet. Honestly, that sounds like a newsletter magnet. Yeah, do you want to read what would happen if these 2 banged?
I've got fanfic of my own like novels. Like, if you ever wanted to know if writers were narcissists,
yeah.
The answer is yes. Yes, we are.
Yeah.
I just love how different it all is. Like we all get to the same end process of a book or multiple books in our cases, and we all get there in very different ways, and I love that.
Yeah.
It is so fascinating. I feel like this is why this question gets asked so much, right? Is like, as it just, everyone does it a little different. Like it's, plotting and pantsing, there is a spectrum, like whatever, like it's everything, you're on a sliding scale, and like, but I like the added layer, right? Of like but there's this other thing we never talk about either between, like, because there are people who like still have really like I really wish we had like someone who is like what we would call a chaotic pantser, because like I feel like very stressed out just by the existence of this kind of thing. So it's like
I think I'm probably the closest you've met.
I'm like it would really stress me out, but I would also be so fascinated. Like
yeah, that would be very interesting. Or like a really chaotic, like I don't even know how you'd have a really chaotic planner. Like I don't know how that would
I do know what that would look like, actually. So I'm thinking of the book I wrote, not the one I'm currently querying, the one I wrote before that, the sibling story that I did. I actually did much more heavy outlining on that book than I've done on any other project. I tried a heavier outlining process. This is when I thought I knew what the ending was. I was wrong, but I thought I knew. And so I actually had it fairly structured. And sometimes like I had like all the chapters laid out before I started, which was very different for me. Sometimes I had absolutely no idea what went in those. I was just like placeholder, something like this character needs a chapter kind of thing. But I had the entire thing outlined with the beats and like the characters and whose POV it was going to be. And I did all of that planning, and I did a lot of like probably a lot more world building on like notes to myself. The closest I think I've ever had to like a world Bible. It was painful for me to do, but I did it. And I had there was a time travel aspect, so I had like calendars and like I did all the plotting. I wrote like I normally do, not in a completely linear fashion. And I went here and here and here and here and here and here and then back over here and then back over here and then back. That is chaos.
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, it's one of those people who like writes scenes and then just like moves them.
Yep, I did that too. I did that too.
Zero interest in that.
I'm like, oh, wait a second. That doesn't belong here. Actually, I didn't do it in that book, but I did it in Jack's book, actually. That I was like, wait a second, I didn't put that in the right spot. And Scrivener, being lovely like it is,
this is exactly what Scrivener's for.
Drag it. Mm-hmm. And I just reordered to get the bigger emotional. And normally I'm doing that when I'm in like the final stages of draft 1. That's normally when I'm moving. I will occasionally move scenes around. Again, part of the chaos.
Yeah. I know quite a few people who do that. They're like love Scrivener, and I'm like, why do you, it's devil software? Why do you people like it? Like it does nothing for me. Like, and it's like, well, because you can move all this stuff and you can have all these. I'm like, oh, I see. It's for that's a different kind of drafting.
I love Scrivener, but I will not ever move anything around. I just like that I can like.
That's for your organizational plotting, right? Yeah. Like it helps with your organizational plotting. And I think the fact, for me, it's helpful because it organizes the chaos and I can move the chaos easily. You like it because for the plotting aspect, it's very easy to plot and organize. Yeah. And then Aimee, I think the reason you probably hate it is because you don't do the chaos and you don't do the super plotting. So what need do you have for that?
I have no need for it. Yeah. I'm like, what is this providing me that Microsoft Word is not? Like, I don't know.
I need the subfolders. I need to be able to know, okay, this is sequence 1. These are these like chapters or scenes that I need to know which act the sequences of plots are going. Yeah. Like I need like 85 subfolders.
But a pure pantser who is not chaotic wouldn't need it.
No, I know. It's like, yeah, people are like, this, or you can move things around, or you can have all these notes files or all their. I'm like, why do you need them? Like, I don't need that stuff until after I'm done the book, and then I have a Bible like that I've made. Like, I'm not going to make that in Scrivener. Like after I'm done the book, like I just. So I just don't understand why people like it, but I do. Like logically, right? We're having this conversation, but like for me, I'm like, it does nothing. It has zero use for me.
Whereas for me, it's not so much organizing like actual plot outlines. Like I said, I will like have like word dumps of being like, I have like a half a page scene that I wrote, or I have like 3 pages that is pure dialogue that I know happens later in the book. Like, and I need to slot that somewhere. It can't be on the page I'm currently working on. It needs to go somewhere else. And I'll be like, that happens chronologically here, and then I'll just like throw it on a page, and then like I will sort that out later, and then I'll finally get to it and I'll be like, oh, I forgot I wrote that. That's amazing. I love this dialogue. But you get to surprise yourself because the chaos is fantastic.
Yeah,
I will say of one time, like I tried this one time, right? What you're describing. And like I got to the place where I was writing to, I'm like, I wrote a scene in advance. It was not, I wasn't there. Like I was like a totally different book by the time I get to that scene. That was great. Cool. I don't know. Extra scene pile. Here we go.
Yeah.
So you didn't end up using it?
No, because it was a totally different, it was like not the same book.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Cause I don't know if I've ever gotten to it and not use the thought, like the plot or the scene or anything that I've left for myself, because normally when I get it, it's because it's such a strong vision for me of like the voice of the character just comes through so strongly that like it's canon now. And I get there, and a lot of times I forget that I wrote it because it could be like 2 months until I get to that scene, and I get there and I'm like, damn, this is good. I love this. And like I just get to have the joy of like rediscovering it and then also incorporating what I rediscovered back in, and it's a lot of fun.
I think for me it's because I can't, like, I don't know what, like if I don't know how to get there. Like if it's come to me out of order, like I don't know how I'm getting there, and like it usually ends up for me like how I get there is like I don't get there. Actually, I go somewhere else. Like I like meander off in my head. So it's like Which is why I'm like, I'm jealous of people who know the ends of their, but like, how do you do that? Because I know the end of this book and I read a totally different book. Like,
I don't know how you can write anything else.
It's almost like I have the idea, like, here's the dark moment over here, and here's where I start. And I don't really know what happens in between. I just like aim in that general direction. But then I learn about this point, so I can redirect. And then I learn about this point, and so I just course correct again. And so I feel like I'm just constantly course correcting a little bit, and it gets me closer and closer as I go through. And so it's kind of giving me something to work towards because I understand the emotional devastation I'm going to give to my characters later a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just, again, like I said, I'm writing towards that emotional devastation the entire time.
I think you guys just have like better control over your characters because like mine, they just do whatever. Like I was writing this circus book, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, this is a cult book now, and like there's cults here. I don't know, like it just this guy was in a cult. I just found out, like. Okay.
Excellent addition.
I'm like, I'm writing about cults, I guess. I don't know. Here we are.
I will say, to counter that slightly, right? Like, I feel like if you listen to your characters and you just can intuitively understand how they would act and behave and what they would do and all of that stuff, like, there is a big risk with the type of plotting I do where if something's off, I can just write characters that don't make sense. I can write characters whose motivations make zero sense when you're reading this, and you're like, I literally just can't comprehend why you're doing this. Like, it is pretty easy to just not have well-written characters because you're trying to force characters that an intuitive person would know wouldn't behave that way into a box because you can't. It's sort of like you're putting cotton swabs in you and you're like, I don't care what you want, you're going this way, let's go, you know?
Yeah, that's the one question I did have. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, do you? I guess you do, right? You come up against like your character being like, "Yeah, I don't want to go in your box."
Like, so yeah, kind of to that point, like you were saying. I still think I always follow the character's voice because the reason when I have those plot points that are in the future that I've jotted down is because the voice is speaking to me so strong about how like a thing that they would do in their character. And it's just that it comes out of sequence. It's almost like I'm divining the future, not what they're doing right now. So it is still very character voice driven. But the one time, like I said, where I did like a super strict outline and I had like the plot planned out, I would still have these moments where I would have these inspiration of what was going to happen. I still put those in and I still like develop those, and that's where the character led. And then, but that veered away from the ending that I wrote.
Yeah,
but I still forced the ending anyways.
Yeah.
And then I let my beta readers read it. I think 2 people liked because it went like it was. Maddie, I think you read that one. It was like a very unhappy, tragic ending, kind of.
Oh, yes.
What David did, yeah.
I would like you to stop writing books like that, for the record.
I've tried it twice now, and I keep having to change the end. But 2 of them, like two of my beta readers, were like, "Yes, love that. That was dark and fantastic." And everybody else is like, "But it doesn't fit the character arc that came out of my organic follow the character voice." And so what I ended up having to do was scrap the original planned ending because I didn't follow the character voice, and I'm not a plotter. I am a plancer. So I needed to follow the character voice because now it didn't fit. Like I had a character arc that went for the first like 2/3 of the book, and then it took a sharp right over here to fit the ending that I'd plotted. And so I had to like connect the ending in a way that made sense. So in a way, like, yeah, same kind of thing. Like if I follow the characters, it goes better and it's a better story for me.
Like, so to the point, like the reason I'm reading this book, right, is I wrote this book, was supposed to be the last book of my series. I suck at endings to begin with. I had to rewrite my Pitch Wars book ending 5 times. Like, so I get to the end of a whole series, 13, 14 book series. It's like a lot. And I'm like talking to Phil and I'm like, I think that this is 2 books. Like, I think the reason that I'm having trouble with this book is that it actually needs to be 2 books. And she's like, yeah, it should be 2. So I wrote the first book and it went really fast. And then I got to the end and I was like, now the second half of that book that I wrote that I should be able to I can't, because it's a totally different book now. It's absolutely different plot. Like, it's just my characters in the other book, once I developed it and fleshed them out and listened to them, want and are after totally different things now. So like, it's like, yeah. And we're talking about the end of a 13, 14 book series. So it's like, there's a lot that happens when you've decided you're going to change that ending from like what you thought it was.
Yeah.
Because now you need to go back and seed it earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can only vaguely imagine.
Yeah. So, but I am like curious about just kind of how do you deal with that? Like when, like, I guess you're saying your characters don't speak to you exactly like we're describing. So maybe it's easier to just put them in the box. Is that what I'm getting?
They just like, it's not even that it's like, it's sort of like more like painting, right? I paint the whole picture, right? And I'm like, this is what the composition, this is what my sketch is going to be. I'm going to paint it. And then I sit back and look at it and I'm like, oh, this kind of looks like an unnatural sitting area angle. But like when I'm painting it, like I don't see any of that. I can't see it in the sketch, right? So then I like look back and I'm like, okay, so then I have to go back and like tweak and repaint this whole thing and adjust everything around it. And then I can sit back and like, it's just very like they don't become who they like. I am building them through the drafting and revision processes to an extent. Like sometimes I figure them out like I have a vision of who they are and like I know who they are and that exists at the beginning, but like it doesn't always come across that way in the execution. So like in this book, the biggest issues, other than the fact that like it was too tight and too quick paced, the biggest issue is that the main characters like the motivations didn't make sense from the beginning because it's like, yeah, but like how does this situation get set up for them to believe this way? And then that made those motivations not relatable. So then they were like, I don't really get why the character's doing this. I don't care. And then also in the like the next part of it, what did my developmental editor said it? Like they were kind of just doing the same thing over and over and then whining about like, why isn't this working? Like, and it didn't really make sense for what they were trying to do and like what their goals were. Like, well, why aren't they actually trying? Like they're not trying, they're not doing these things. It doesn't make sense. So I had to go back and like it's and I had to refix it all and like what they're be doing. And I guess that's the part that I have to tweak the most going through, even though that's the initial idea.
Follow-up question then. To an extent, then, are you sort of figuring out like the character particulars and like their personality a little bit as you draft?
It's not that I'm figuring them out. It's that I'm figuring out how to put them in the book.
Like how they present.
Yeah, like the execution of it is frequently not exactly what I had in mind. Because like when I plotted outline, I'm like, okay, at a high level, like all of this works and all these thread works, but like there's so many of them that it's kind of impossible to have them all perfect, like at that stage, right? Like there's always going to be things that like when you actually read it are different or don't hit the same way. And so the reader experience, like trying to craft the reader's experience to be what I intended it to be, is a gradual process.
Yeah, so for me, it's like what I see is like you're talking about like you have this little plot and you have to find out who fits on that plot. Like kind of like how do we get there? Because for me, it's like I'm like I can't understand how you don't veer off the plot line, like how your characters don't just go rogue, like because that's what mine do. But I'm like thinking if like I had the ability to just have like here's like 50 characters I've built up in my head, I'm just gonna like strategically like put them so that they are natural, like what they're going to do makes sense for this plot line.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be great if I could do that. I cannot because the voices are so loud in my head, but like
honestly, that's kind of what I do too. Like I very much like my POV characters are always very strong for me. I can't start writing if they aren't. And I might kind of discover some of the others who don't have POVs. I might discover them a little bit as we go. But generally, I'm like, oh, this obstacle gets thrown in your path. And I like know they throw the obstacle in and I'm like, we'll see how they respond to that. And just kind of let them respond as they're going to respond. Sometimes I have like an idea of how they will for some of the bigger stuff. But sometimes like they surprise me and I'm like, all right, well, that was an authentic reaction for you. Mm-hmm. So we're going to follow that. And if for whatever reason, if their authentic reaction kind of breaks the story, sometimes I will just be like, okay, well, story broke and now we're going to go on. We're writing a different story than I thought. Or sometimes I'll be like, well, maybe I threw the wrong obstacle in the path and I'll just like back up, tweak the obstacle, and then like get a kind of throw it that way. But like I never change how they respond to the obstacle. Like that was their authentic reaction. I will occasionally change the obstacle, or I'll change like give more room afterwards to kind of veer back to where I think we're supposed to go. I guess like I never change how they respond.
Yeah. I think my issue is that I don't plot enough in those instances, and like and this is like, again, I'm growing as a writer every time I do more plotting because I realize these details. Like, should I have, for me, started my book before this one, before I knew a really detailed understanding of the main character's relationship and how she's actually functionally working with her family? Probably not. I should have figured out that beforehand, because I ended up having to go in and like re-figure that out and weave it back in. So I think a lot of it is just, I don't think about, like, if there's anything I didn't think about beforehand, it's not going to occur to me as I'm writing. So then it just is a vagary, like almost like a plot hole with the character where you're like, but like, what about this thing? Like that just will not occur.
Readers before.
Like you don't have people just like being in a cult all of a sudden. Like that's you don't just find out one of your characters is half a fairy like in the middle of a thing. Like book 9. Like no, okay.
I've never like, I don't like, and that's part of why I think I'm such a planner, is because I don't think of new things while I'm writing. I'm writing, like, it is not as creative of a process for me as I think it is for writers that lean more on the pantser side. Like that isn't I'm discovering things and I'm like it's less creative for me. It is a lot more just like, honestly, revision is more creative for me than actually writing a first draft, because in the revision I'm like, it's here and I can like it feels like I'm like can make it beautiful and make it something wonderful and like tweak things to be more like that is a more like the first draft is probably the least creative part of the entire process for me.
That's so interesting. So how long are your outlines like versus your first draft? Like out of like, do you have a general like
so my first one,
I'm like, some people write outlines that I think are first drafts. They're just trying to call it something else.
Well, yeah, I mean, like from a word count perspective, I think you could argue that like if you look at all the prep work, like just my outline alone, the last time I actually typed it out, because like the last 2 I haven't and they've been longer, but my first one was 40,000 words. But that is not, it's not the type of stuff you'd put in a book, right? Like it's not dialogue, it's not description, it's not prose, it's not any of those things. It's like if you were to do a theory analysis of it after the fact, it's like that. And like notes along like, oh, this is going to happen, so we need to seed in these details and like make it clear that this is da da da. It's like that sort of, like it's very different than like anything you'd see in like actual the novel itself. Like I can't take even a sentence from my outline into the actual chapter.
That's so interesting.
Whereas even when I did like my biggest plotting I ever did, I think was the David book. And I think that outline was probably 35,000 words. And there was like a whole scene of just dialogue in there. And there was like, you know, a couple, like I would write like about a page that of a pivot point. Like, so there were parts of it that did like copy paste made it straight into the draft for mine. And I don't have like, this is all the list of all the stuff. Like occasionally I'll just be like, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. It was about 35,000 words of word vomit, which is it kind of was a draft, but like half a draft. It was, yeah.
I mean, that's so fascinating to me, because I'm like, it's like, it blows my mind, because for me, I think, and part of it, I think, is because I am such a line level focused writer. Like, I can't imagine writing something that isn't beautiful. Like you know what I mean? Like, it's like, what are you gonna do? What are you wasting? Like, just fucking write the book. Oh, sorry. Just write, just like write the book. You know, I'm like, I just like, I think, but when I listen to it, I'm like, it's actually such a great process what you're describing. Like, I think it's fantastic. I wish I could do it. But for me, it's like, I get bored when it lacks the beauty. Like, you know, and that's why I say for me, like, drafting is magical. Like, that's the process I like the most. But like, yeah, I mean, it makes editing a real nightmare.
So in a way, like what's actually really interesting that I think we just landed on is like you've said that the drafting is magical for you. And I had always just assumed it was the discovery part, but now I'm hearing that like it's the discovery part, but also the prose that you're finding magical. And Maddie, you're finding the revision process to be kind of magical because you get to pull out the prose and
that's when I make it pretty.
And the discovery and like just really deepening and fleshing things out. For me, my first draft, it's magical to me because I get to discover the story, but I do not focus on prose. For me, that's what makes my first, like turning it into my second draft magical, is then I get to like, so like I have my discovery finding that's magical in the drafting process, and then my making it, you know, the words beautiful in the second draft. And so like both of those can kind of be magical to me. Third draft, I feel like I'm pulling teeth because then I'm doing like grammar and cutting out, you know, crutch words or whatever. And I hate that. Like, that's when I'm like, the magic is gone. Can I be done with this now? But normally by the time I get to the third draft, that's when I'm getting feedback from my beta readers. And it again sparks the discovery process because then I get to problem solve. And that is so much fun. So like, it's almost like, because of the way mine is chaotic, is that like, I'm almost parceling out a joy in each version of a draft.
Isn't that
makes sense from what you said about what, like how you write and what motivates you to move forward and like.
Yeah, it's funny because I was like, you know, I was just talking to Phil recently about like my my circus, you know, my circus book, Circus Fairy book, which she read and liked, and I'm like, I hate this book, I'm gonna burn it. Like, I literally was like, I'm gonna delete it. I'm gonna delete everything. She was like, just email your stuff. I was like on the ledge. I'm like, I'm gonna delete my entire series. And she's like, what's? I like the book. Like, what's wrong? I genuinely like the book, and I'm like, because my line level is terrible. Like that, like, it's such it's not beautiful, and I hate it, and I'm just gonna burn everything.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, mine, like my first drafts are pretty trash. Like there's a few lines that like I'll have a particular moment of writing some good lines, but for the most part, it's not pretty.
Yeah, for me, it's I just like that's such a part of my like of finding like the joy in doing it, that it's like when it isn't there, I get really like dramatic about it.
For me, the parts where I get a little bit dramatic, I will say, like when it comes to like what is the setting, what is the physicality, like all of that, like a lot of times I will just be super skimpy on because I'm like, I don't know, I don't care. I will deal with that later. But voice, that is one thing. If the voice is not coming, that's where I get cranky because for me, that means one, that's an indication for me that I don't understand my characters well enough. But two, like, it's fun to write in voice. And so if the voice isn't coming, it's not fun and magical anymore. Like that is where I just follow where the voice goes. And it comes out in my writing. So like if I'm writing dialogue that's clunky, or I'm writing interiority and it's clunky, I'm like, I'm not having a good time. That's where it comes out for me.
Yeah. That makes sense. Cause like it almost makes me wonder, like, I wonder if like, well, because I would say that pretty arguably, like one of the strongest things of the books you write is the voice.
100%.
I think so.
100%.
Yeah, yeah. And I always wonder, like, Aimee, Phil, you'd have to like confirm, but like, I wonder, is prose one of the best things about like Aimee's books?
Like your line level?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my agent actually said to me one time, was like one of the best. She was like, "You're the best line level author that I have." Like it's, like, it's like I don't want to write a sentence that isn't beautiful. Like it's like
yeah.
Like don't get me wrong, your characters, your plots. Obviously, I've read multiple of your books by this point, and I love them. But from a craft standpoint, absolutely, your line level, like that is, like I would say, one of your hallmark for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like the things that we're best at. We like to do what we're good at too.
Yeah. We have to have
another Writers or Nurses moment brought to you by. So I would think, like, based on what I'm hearing too, is like, so Maddie is like your world building, if I had to guess, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very well rounded. Very
during this video.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting though. I think like so fascinating. Like, and this is why this is like a, you know, evergreen topic, right? Like, because it's so interesting to learn from other writers. Like, my other like advice that's not really advice, but yes, it really is like beta read everything, like help your fellow authors build community, because you learn so much from reading other people's writing and like learning about their process, even if it's not something that you're going to use. Like, just opening your mind, expanding your mind to it, or like seeing like, oh, there's a little thing there that I never even thought about that as a thing. Like I literally, Maddie, like I've never considered like thinking in advance about how my character like presents, or like how my character moves, or like, I'm like, whoa. But now I'm thinking like,
them.
But that's so fascinating, actually. You know, like I actually didn't even consider that in my writing. Like, I don't know if my characters move differently. I do actually, because I'm obsessed with grace. So like any of my characters that are graceful, yeah. But like if they're not, like I don't know, no idea. They're, you know, I think that's just like so fascinating to have mannerisms in advance, these things like that. Like, so I like learn. You know, you learn from reading other people's like writing too. They're just better at stuff than you. Like, don't be afraid to recognize you're not good at some stuff. Like, you know,
yeah. I think having well-rounded critique partners is also very helpful. Like having ones that are like different skill sets to read your book from different perspectives and be able to like really speak to certain things is also really helpful.
Yeah. I think it also helps you learn, like for me, because line level is so important, like Phil's process with the brackets drives me nuts sometimes. Like I'm like, how do you do this? It's like, but it also helps me like let that go and like really learn to like look at different elements of the craft. Like not just focus in on the thing that I'm good at, like focus in on like the bigger, and that will make my writing better in the end, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, before I started beta reading, you hand me something, I'm just going to edit it line by line by line, because that's what I do. But I'm not looking at the bigger structure of the thing, right? So I've gotten much better with that, with dealing with people who write in different ways.
No, and I think that's an excellent point too, about both getting people who are different than you reading yours, but also reading beta reading for others. Because one thing that like I knew, like I never worry about voice. I just let that come and let that go. I don't focus on that. But one thing that I have been like purposefully doing is like trying to read both published books and beta read books with critique partners of people who are more focused and do much better at like setting and physical descriptions and stuff, because that's like, I don't care about it, but I know readers care. So I've made a point of like trying to learn from that. And I've definitely noticed like the current draft I'm working on right now of my new project, it is coming so much easier than it ever has for me before, ever. And I'm like reading back through my first 2 chapters that I'm like, damn, that is so much better than I've ever written. Because it's like layering on, like, yes, I'm still like leaning into my strength with the voice, but like I'm able to like pull in those other things that I never worked on before because I made like an intentional effort to. So I think that's always something, whether it's like from a process standpoint or craft standpoint, just really learning from those around you. That's what the community is for.
Yeah.
It's like so important. Like I just think it's like for so many reasons, right? Like not only because like nobody else understands publishing except people in publishing. Like good luck. Like, you know, just starting out, like you're never going to explain publishing to your family. I'm sorry. Like I literally have been trying to like get my book sold for like 8 years and querying and all that. And they're like, hey, you finished another book. Like you're on book like 90 and you're still not that in Barnes and Noble. It's like, yeah, it's just, you know, you need people who understand that struggle. Like, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think tying back into like some of the things we were talking about earlier with like imposter syndrome and stuff like that too, like I think it's so hard for a writer, especially early on, to know yourself and to trust yourself that you can figure out what works best for you. Because I feel like a lot of writers, like, and part of the problem is like any craft book, any piece of advice that you hear is going to be geared towards one specific type of writer or one thing that's worked a certain way. And like that may be wonderful, great advice. They may be a best-selling author. They may be amazing, but that doesn't mean that advice is going to do diddly squat for you. And like not having that trust in yourself and your process to know that like it's okay that you're different and it's okay that like you may not work this way. Like there's going to be stuff that's geared towards that. And like I feel like being exposed to different writers and different processes like kind of helps give a lot of like what's the word I'm feeling, but like justifies your own differences.
Like validating, yeah. It's
yeah, a lot of that. And like that's I feel like one of the most important things for like writers to learn how to do that, how to, you know, be able to approach craft books and read it and be like, I know none of this is going to even be relevant for me, but like this part, this I can tweak and use in my process, and like how to actually do that and give yourself permission to like do that, you know?
I think especially for people who are neurodivergent, like it can be a struggle. Like I remember in college when I was like I have a writing degree, and like I had all these, my professor had like rules on our like workshop door. Like you had these like rules you had to follow. And I had in my dorm, I had all these like, you know, posters that I'd made of like quotes of writing advice. And like, I'm like, these are the rules. These are the law. Cause that's how my brain is like, my neurodivergent brain kicks in. And it's like, we have given a rule. That's why I also struggle with self-publishing when I did it back in the day. Cause it's like, you do this, and this, and you will be a millionaire. And I'm like, oh, great rules. I just like get rich quick. Fantastic. Like I followed all the rules and like that didn't happen. And then it's like, well, what is wrong with me? Right. So it's like, I think it's important for people who, especially who are like rule based, to understand like they're not rules. Like,
right.
Yeah. Cause it's like you fall into that trap of like, okay. And then the only one to blame then is like you, right? It's like, no, it's not you, because those aren't rules. Like if anybody knew the like absolute guaranteed way to get published, like they would publish a book about it and be a bazillionaire, and we would all not have to struggle anymore. It's a struggle.
And I think what you're saying about giving yourself permission, like before when I was like listening to the writing advice and blah, 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 even as I was being a pantser, like the one thing that I remember, the rule that was very strict was like, you have to start at the beginning and go strictly towards the end. No other way is like, you can't write any other way. And so I kept trying to force myself to just go from the beginning to the end. And it wasn't until I gave myself the permission to do the brackets and to jump around. It was hard. Like that first book, part of it was because of pantsing. And because I was new, but I think a lot of it was because I was forcing myself to go rigidly forward for those first couple of books. And each one, the first one probably took me 3 years. The second one, I think, took me like almost 2 years. Like it takes me longer. And now, generally speaking, depending on life coming up, I generally get my first draft done, maybe 6 months. Like just in general. And it's because I give myself the permission to write the way that works for me. If I try and write a different way, it's like pulling teeth sometimes. And it like you lose the joy, I think, in some aspects.
Yeah. I think for me, that struggle has been the writing advice that I like hate. And I always want to tell everyone to cancel is like write every day. Like you have to have your blood in the seat or whatever. Like Hemingway, like, hi, no one can, you guess what? You can't be Hemingway anymore. Man lives on an island and publishes a book once every 10 years. Like, okay, no, that's not how the system works today. But that for me is being like, you know, having mad ADHD and like hyper focus. Like I will like not write sometimes for weeks or months or years. Like I think my last book, it took me 1.5 years, almost 2 years to write. And then I sat down and I'm like, pull my laptop up and I hit inspiration hit. And I'm like, the next book that I wrote took me 4 days to write.
And how many have you written in the
past? I don't know. I was like 13 books I've written since like June or something. It's like crazy. Yeah.
Exactly. You need to do what works for you. And I guess maybe, you know, you're saying like that's a writing advice that you hate. I had said like the writing all the way through. Another one that I absolutely hate is when people tell you, now I don't always do this, but like when people tell you you cannot go back and edit.
Oh,
until
yeah.
you're done.
Oh man, I love that advice.
See, that works for me. That works for me, but like I know it doesn't work for everybody.
Exactly. Like I'm gonna say I don't do that. I don't generally go back. Like I might go back and reread it to get inspiration to move forward. And I might like add a note to myself as I go. But like that kind of also speaks to the, well, that also means adding notes to yourself about the play. Like that would say, no, you don't get to do that. Now, especially if it's your first book, maybe just keep moving forward because you're still learning. But if your process is you go back, you reread the last couple chapters, you tweak it, you clean it, you make it beautiful prose, and then you keep moving forward to make a messy, next 2 chapters, and then you go back. If that's your process, do it. Like that's not what I do, but I hate the rule that you can't do that. Like if that works for you, do that.
I think it's a really good rule, advice, whatever. It's not a rule for like people who are just start, like, because a lot of people will start a book and never finish it. Like
that is a good rule for somebody who's never finished a first draft.
Exactly. Right. It's like, but once you're there, like, okay, like you've learned you can finish a book. So like now it's like, that's when it's time to like play a bit. Like
it's a skill unlocking. Once you've unlocked that skill, like.
Yeah. And then you can do, but I do think like, especially if you're struggling to finish the book, like just write the book, like stop going back and looking at the book, like write the book. Right. I had a writing professor that was probably the best writing advice I ever received in my college class. Was I would do that with short stories, and I would like go back and go because I'm obsessive with lines. So it's like I fall victim to this very easily. So she was like, just write the story. Like and she literally at her office hours like made me sit down and was like, you're not leaving this room until you finish the story. And I was like, but I learned, I think, to like, but then once you've unlocked the skill, to your point, Maddie, I think it's definitely bad advice because some people they get the joy in different, like what we're talking about, right? You get the joy in different places. Like if you get the joy from going back and tweaking your line level, and that's what it's going to take to like give you the motivation, do it, like do whatever you need to do. Like,
right. And if you're the type of writer who gets to the end of the book and looks at a full, completely messy first draft, and that is so like unmotivating and debilitating for you that you just can't do it, then doing it, write a chapter, edit the chapter, write a chapter, edit the chapter, and then when you go back, it's not as scary. Like I know another writer who does it like that, just to make it less like, because otherwise they can't touch it because it's so gross.
Yeah, so for me, I think that's just like, I think there's a lot of advice that it's hard on new writers because you want to do it right or you want to like follow the rules, and it's like, it's not, listen, being neurodivergent, like the last thing I want to hear is there are no rules. But like, guess what? There are no rules. Like, just get comfortable with that. Like, there are no rules.
And I guess my one rule I would say is, what do you need to do to make the words on the page?
Yeah,
that's the rule.
You can't edit a blank page. That's like the advice like.
Yeah. You can't really argue your way around that one.
No, that one's probably pretty solid.
Yeah.
That's your one rule from me.
Yeah. So if people are watching this and you're one of those newer writers that was like hoping this would help you decide what you are.
Yeah, sorry, this isn't that video.
Just try.
I'm really curious to see how many of the people are like also pure chaos.
I'm curious.
I haven't really found a lot of other pure chaos writers, and
that's funny. I feel like a lot of my friends from Pitch Wars and stuff write like that, which
that's
why
good.
I got into the Scrivener debate so much because.
Yeah. Well, if you know what you are, you should let us know if any of this sounds like you or if you're vastly different in some way. I think we're all very curious to hear it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's always fun. But do any of you have any, like, I mean, I don't think you have anything. Aimee, do you have anything to, like, send people in the direction towards? Or you can send me links and I can put them in the description or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have a website.
Okay. We'll put that, it will be in the description. And if it's not, comment angrily until I put it in the description. Okay, well, I think this was super fun to film and was also mostly a selfish thing because I thought it would be really fun, and it was really fun. So I enjoyed talking to you guys, and I'm glad you joined me for this.
It was very fun. I definitely needed the get out of my headspace. I've been a little bit stuck at my current book, so
yeah. It's always fun chatting about stuff.
Yeah. Remembering why you like your writing, hopefully.
Exactly. Yeah. One can hope.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, so that was us. That was us talking about this. And goodbye. I'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
Okay, I'm going to click the end recording button now. Okay, then just don't leave.